Hi, this is Professor Bogner. Welcome to the Introduction to E-commerce IT 076 and our first week and first module. The revolution has just begun. I joined e-commerce in 1996 with a startup in New York City, and I was their first product manager, and I did a variety of things: development management, strategic alliances, corporate development. Um, at the time, we used to say e-commerce, to use a baseball analogy, was in preseason, and it's still so early on, 17 years later. So let's get going. Um, a variety of the things we're going to look at in this course include the most recent trends. So while we're going to go over an overview and the history and the evolution, we're also going to be talking about the things that you see every day in your lives as digital natives, in terms of mobile platforms, commerce actually really running on mobile POS, mobile tablets. You look at Apple's retail stores, a great example of that, and many others. I remember at Bye Bye Baby, where I was head of e-commerce when the iPhone came out, working on projects and having my team work on projects where we were ready to allow our consumers, when they were in the aisles of our competitors, such as Babies R Us, to be able to look up our pricing and then either order online or know that they could go down the block to Bye Bye Baby and buy it in our retail store. You've experienced, and I would love to hear in your discussion points, the growth of social commerce using social networks to complement e-commerce at both a social level and a local level. Local, using such services as local-based media, digital signage, Foursquare, Living Social, a variety of these tools which actually allow e-commerce, virtual, digital, to be driven into the stores and into the locations to drive in real life e-commerce. Huge growth in data across all areas of digital businesses, including e-commerce, and how do businesses handle the volumes of data that are coming through. You'll learn that the amount of data just in 2012 eclipsed all the data in time prior to 2012 from the beginning of time. It's mind-boggling. So yeah, big data is a variety of things. It's volume of data, speed of data, and how do businesses take advantage of having so much data without drowning in it. And then a variety of things. Another trend that's very interesting, and I'm sure you guys get involved with, are ebooks, either interactive ebooks such as Court Smart, where you can get the Loudon textbook as an interactive book, Kindle books, and then plain old PDF reading on your smartphones, your tablets, and on your laptops. So interesting times, interesting trends. So what are their impact on e-commerce? We're going to spend time on that. As I mentioned, the early days, first 17 years, it's really gone by in a flash. So much going on, so much has changed. Very disruptive to businesses, but also a lot of opportunities. Also a lot of business models that have tried and failed. Maybe they weren't real business models, and we're going to learn about those and the rapid growth at exponential rates. So some of the things, and you'll see from the learning objectives video that I showed earlier, defining e-commerce. It's really, in the e-commerce side, it's about the transaction side of it, between individuals, across organizations, B2B and B2C, business to consumer, business to business, and also C2C, consumer to consumer. Examples like eBay and marketplaces. So a general view, and e-business is also involved with driving the ability to, from the IT perspective and the information systems perspective, to enable these transactions, but also the manual processes that are involved, the supply chain, the logistics, getting the products online, sourcing, and then driving that through to order management, order transactions, customer service, inventory control, warehouse management, and operation control. This is a big area, e-commerce operations, and this is an area, one of my specialties. So it doesn't necessarily include the commercial transactions, but it involves driving value across organizational boundaries. So the purchasing department within an organization working with the marketing department to display the products and merchandise online, the customer service and order management departments handling those orders, finding those lost orders, satisfying customers, and the inventory and distribution and shipping, pick, pack, and ship, fulfillment, warehouse, all of those components of the supply chain, all very important as part of e-business. So why are we studying e-commerce? Why isn't there television commerce or radio commerce? It's such a fundamental change to the world where customers traditionally are passive consumers. They sit back, they listen to messages from marketing departments, sales forces call, knock on their doors or call on them on the telephone. Pricing is non-dynamic, it's fixed, and it's what you see is what you get. So all of this information is now out there for consumers to be active and react. And Salesforce are highly disruptive, as well as retail organizations, entertainment organizations, healthcare, financial organizations. And the fluidity of pricing and the asymmetry and asynchronous nature of information is all driving a lot of this disruption. So that's why it's important. It's very, very different. There's a variety of features, and hint, hint, you'll be expected to know what these are. Ubiquity, the pervasiveness of e-commerce in its various forms. Businesses can now be global. The little shop on the corner that's selling apparel can now reach anywhere in the world. There are standards involved with things like payment card security compliance, HIPAA on the healthcare side. So there's a variety of things that have to be in place, even for the smallest businesses, to be able to garner the trust, as well as standards along the lines of protocols, internet protocols, broadband protocols, and communications protocols. Today, information is very, very dense and rich. So there's a lot of information out there, and that's where a lot of the competitive advantage. There's an interesting balance between simplicity and being able to deliver rich data and translate that complexity into something that's palatable, but also drives consumers to hit that buy button. And then the other piece of it is consumers are no longer passive within the area of disruptive e-commerce technology. They're interactive. They're reaching back. They're commenting. And as I've told many, many business clients and organizations that I've worked with, you can't hide your head in the sand and pretend that these things aren't happening for businesses that are transitioning to e-commerce. You have to put together plans to respond to consumers actually reaching out to the corporation at the individual level. And at the individual level, again, personalization and customization is so important. Back in 1996, 97, 98, we talked about Peppers and Rogers, the studies that this think tank did on personalization and mass customization. At the time, it was the early days, but now these are realized very, very specifically for the smallest and largest businesses. And Amazon is a great, great example of that through recommended purchases, customization of tailored items that might be interesting to you. As you go on to Amazon, you'll find recommendations, and those personalized recommendations are one huge example of that. And then, as we've mentioned, social technology, F-commerce, commerce done over Facebook, Twitter commerce, transactions actually happening on Twitter devices. And both of those, Facebook, Twitter, and many, many others in the social realm are really mobile technologies, because when you think about it, people are on their smartphones, they're walking in the streets, they're making transactions, they're finding out about promotions and opportunities, not just through mobile apps, not just through mobile websites, but huge channel through social networks. And that's a big part of the unique features of today's e-commerce or social commerce. So you're going to learn a lot about a variety of terminology and jargon. One of the key jargon items is Web 2.0, which is a phase that we're still in, that was different than 1.0 back in 95, 96, 97, where user-generated content and communication, communities, vocal, so that interactivity really began. There were a lot of businesses out there in Web 2.0 using these types of user-centered applications, such as Twitter and YouTube-like applications. Pretty bumpy in the last 10 years in terms of businesses that have tried and failed in these areas, but more and more are becoming more successful. And we'll spend some time on a number of these, including Pinterest as one of the first case studies. E-commerce classified by market relationship or technology. So remember it that way, and that'll help you get through these terminologies. You've all heard of business to consumer, or B2C. That's the primary one, where a business promotes and markets to consumers. So it's online retailing, if you will, or online entertainment retailing, where consumers use the web and businesses use the web to drive e-commerce directly to the consumer. So there's a direct business to consumer relationship. Then there's the business to business piece, or B2B, where businesses are using the internet and e-commerce to do things like source and produce products along the supply chain and the value chain. So manufacturers are using business to business e-commerce to drive their goods to distributors, or bypassing distributors and going direct to retailers, who are then selling to consumers directly. So you might hear the term also B2B2C. That's an example of that. Manufacturer going to distributor, going to retailer, going to consumer. Consumer to consumer is where people are selling their items directly in advanced marketplaces. And the biggest model of that is obviously eBay, where people sell their own goods. Etsy is another one. People might build and sell their own goods on an eBay or an Etsy, or they might sell their used goods, like you might sell your used textbooks. And then there's technology-based. Those are relationship-based. Then there's technology-based types of e-commerce. Social e-commerce, as we mentioned, mobile e-commerce, m-commerce. So more and more of the transactions actually happening on the smartphone, on the tablet. Just bringing up my smartphone here. And then local e-commerce, done right at the store, right at the venue where coupons are redeemed. I went to Starbucks earlier today, got my coffee, and bought it with my Starbucks app through my mobile wallet.